I funded her dream life with $800 a week. But at her family's housewarming, she told everyone I was just a roommate. I smiled, took my keys out of my pocket, and said, "Then I'll pack like one." Her mother screamed as I opened the safe. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get played. I always considered myself logical, careful, the type to see the red flags before they turned into full-blown disasters. But love makes you blind, or maybe just stupid. For 5 years, I took care of Kira. I wasn't just her boyfriend. I was her provider, her safety net, the guy who made sure all her dreams stayed within reach. I covered rent, bills, vacations, and anything else she needed while she worked on building her business. I never complained. I wanted to see her succeed. But the night of her parents' housewarming party changed everything. It was the moment I realized that while I had been planning a future with her, she had never planned one with me. We pulled up to the house a little after 6. Kira sat in the passenger seat, fixing her makeup in the mirror, barely acknowledging me. She had been weird all day, distracted, distant, like something was on her mind, but she didn't want to talk about it. "You sure you want me here?" I asked, watching her as she reapplied her lipstick. She sighed, snapping the mirror shut. "Of course I do. Why would you even ask that?" I shrugged. "Your mom barely tolerates me. Your dad doesn't talk to me unless it's absolutely necessary. And the last time I saw your cousin Emily, she asked me if I was your friend from work." Kira rolled her eyes. "They just don't know you that well." I didn't believe that for a second. We'd been together 5 years. If they didn't know me by now, it was because she didn't want them to. I let it go. I always let things go. We walked up the long driveway to the massive house her parents had just bought in Westchester, a 5-bedroom colonial-style home with a pool and a backyard big enough to host a wedding. Kira had been raving about it for weeks, calling it her dream home. I had always assumed she meant our dream home. Inside, the place was packed. Relatives, family friends, co-workers, all mingling over wine and expensive hors d'oeuvres. Her mom, Sylvia, was in the kitchen, barking orders at the catering staff, while her dad, Richard, stood by the fireplace, laughing with some old business associates. Kira led me into the living room, where a group of her relatives had gathered. She hugged her aunt, her cousin, her childhood friend from high school. Then, the inevitable question came. "And who's this?" her aunt asked, looking at me. I opened my mouth to respond, but Kira beat me to it. "Oh, that's Noah," she said casually. "He's my roommate." I laughed, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. Roommate. My stomach tightened. I stared at her, but she was already moving on, chatting like nothing had happened. Roommate. I paid for the apartment we shared, covered her business expenses, gave her $800 a week so she could focus on her passion without stressing about money. I had been by her side for half a decade, supporting her in every way imaginable. And in front of her family, I was just a roommate? I swallowed the bitterness rising in my throat and let out a small chuckle. "Then I'll pack like one." I pulled my keys out of my pocket and jingled them lightly before turning toward the door. It took a second for her to register what was happening. Then, just as I reached the front entrance, I heard her mother's voice, sharp, demanding. "Noah, what are you doing?" I turned back, slipping my keys into my pocket. "Leaving," I said simply, like a roommate would. Kira's face had gone pale. "Noah, wait." I didn't wait. I walked out. I didn't slam the door, didn't make a scene. I just left. Because what the hell else was there to say? The drive home was a blur. My hands were tight on the wheel, my mind replaying the moment over and over. Roommate, roommate, roommate. How long had she been thinking of me like that? Had I ever actually been her boyfriend, or had I just been a convenient ATM with a pulse? By the time I got back to our apartment, I had made up my mind. I was done. I grabbed a suitcase and started packing. Clothes, toiletries, my work laptop, everything that was mine. Then, before I left, I walked over to the safe. Kira thought I didn't know the combination. She was wrong. Inside, I found everything I had ever given her. The engagement ring I had bought last year, but never proposed with because she kept saying she wasn't ready. The emergency cash I had put in there when she said she needed help with her business. And a thick folder labeled Future Plans. I opened it. Inside were sketches, mood boards, and cost breakdowns for a house she had been designing. A house I wasn't in. That was when I knew this had never been real for her. I was never her future. I was just the guy paying for it. I took my ring, took my cash, took my dignity. Then, before locking the safe, I left a note. A roommate wouldn't have done all this. Enjoy your dream life. Find another sponsor. And with that, I walked out the door. 3 days later, she called. Not to apologize. Not to beg. Just, "I think we need to talk." I let out a short laugh. There's nothing left to talk about. A pause. Then, in a quieter voice, "Are you really leaving like this?" I exhaled slowly, rubbing my temple. "Kira, you had 5 years to make me feel like more than a paycheck. You never did." She didn't say anything. Neither did I. I hung up. 6 months passed. Through mutual friends, I heard that her business had flopped. She had moved back in with her parents. They had to sell the house to cover debts. I should have felt bad. I didn't. Because a lesson like that? It was worth every damn penny. The weeks that followed felt surreal. I kept waiting for the anger to set in, the heartbreak, the crushing weight of realizing I had wasted 5 years of my life on someone who saw me as nothing more than a wallet. But it never came. Instead, there was clarity. A cold, sharp clarity that made me reevaluate every single thing I had ignored. The late nights when she'd come home from business meetings with a new bag she never mentioned buying. The way she always dodged conversations about the future, even when I told her I was thinking about proposing. The months she spent designing houses, her dream homes, without ever asking what I wanted in a house. It had always been right in front of me. I just refused to see it. I wasn't heartbroken. I was humiliated. 2 weeks after I left, Kira showed up at my new place. I had moved into a smaller apartment closer to my office. Nothing fancy, just practical. She stood outside my door, wearing one of those tight sweaters she knew I liked, holding a coffee like it was some kind of peace offering. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What do you want, Kira? She smiled like this was just another conversation. Can I come in? I almost laughed. Why? Her smile faltered. I just want to talk. Talk. I repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. Funny. You never wanted to talk when I was paying for everything. She exhaled sharply, rolling her eyes. Are we really doing this? You tell me, I said, not moving from the doorway. Because from where I'm standing, I was never anything more than a roommate to you. So what exactly do you need from me now? Kira shifted, looking uncomfortable. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She hesitated. That was the thing about Kira. She was quick with words when she was in control, when she could steer the conversation the way she wanted. But now she had nothing. I messed up, she admitted finally, her voice quieter. I was nervous. My family, they expect a certain kind of guy. I didn't think they'd understand. I stared at her. A certain kind of guy? You know what I mean, she said, looking frustrated. They wanted me to be with someone successful. Someone who? I barked out a laugh. Oh, I get it. Someone rich. Someone who wasn't just funding your life, but looked the part too, right? She had the nerve to look offended. That's not fair. I leaned in just slightly. No, Kira. What's not fair is the fact that I gave you 5 years of my life, my money, my trust, only for you to reduce me to a F-king roommate in front of the people who should have known me as your partner. She flinched. Good. For the first time in years, I wasn't handling her with kid gloves. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, fingers tightening around the coffee cup. So what now? She asked hesitantly. I shrugged. Nothing. You move on. I move on. Her brows pulled together like she hadn't considered that possibility. You really don't want to try and fix this? I smiled, but there was nothing kind in it. No, I don't. She blinked, and for the first time since I met her, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. I nodded once, stepping back inside. Take care, Kira. Then I shut the door in her face. And this time, I didn't look back. I thought that was the end of it. But a month later, she called me again. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Hello. Noah. Her voice was small, hesitant. I need your help. Of course she did. I exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of my nose. With what? She hesitated. I need somewhere to stay. Just for a little while. I almost dropped my phone. Are you effing serious? I wouldn't ask if I had any other option, she rushed to say. Things didn't work out, and I need some time to figure things out. I can pay rent. I swear. Rent. The woman who lived off my money for years was now offering to pay me rent. You're unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. Noah, please, she whispered. I don't have anywhere else to go. I ran a hand down my face, debating my next words. Then, I sighed and said, You know, Kira, I'd love to help. But the thing is, I already have a new roommate. And then I hung up. I tossed my phone onto the counter and exhaled sharply, staring at the ceiling. She really had the audacity to call me, after everything, and ask for a place to stay. For 5 years, she drained me, financially, emotionally, and now, when things weren't going her way, she expected me to be her safety net again. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was just done. A part of me knew this call wouldn't be the last. And I was right. 3 days later, I was coming home from work when I saw her. Kira, sitting on the steps of my apartment building, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She had always carried herself like she was in control, back straight, chin up, always perfectly put together. But now, she looked exhausted. As much as I hated her for what she did, seeing her like that, it didn't feel good. I let out a slow breath and walked past her toward the door. She stood up quickly. Noah, wait. I sighed, already regretting stopping. What do you want, Kira? She hesitated, shuffling nervously. I just need a second to explain. I gave her a blank look. Explain what? That you used me? That you were perfectly happy to let me pay for your entire life until you realized you couldn't milk me anymore. Her face twisted in frustration. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I asked, folding my arms. Go on. I'd love to hear this explanation. She bit her lip, looking down. For a second, I thought she was going to cry. But then she straightened up, taking a deep breath. I did care about you, Noah, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I still do. I let out a bitter chuckle. That's funny, because people who care about each other usually don't introduce their boyfriend as a roommate. She winced. I panicked. My family, they judge everything. My mom, she's always wanted me to be with someone who looks successful, who has the right image. I tilted my head. You mean rich? She shook her head quickly. No, just someone with status. I stared at her. You had status, Kira? Because of me. Her jaw clenched. That's not fair. No. I let out a humorless laugh. What's not fair is me spending 5 years of my life thinking we were building something together, only to find out I was just a F-king ATM to you. It wasn't like that, she snapped, eyes shining with frustration. I made mistakes, okay? I was stupid. But that doesn't mean I didn't love you. I shook my head. No, Kira. You love what I did for you. There's a difference. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Go home, Kira. Her voice cracked. I don't have a home. I paused, looked at her again. She wasn't lying. Something had happened. I didn't want to care. I shouldn't care. But after 5 years, it was hard to shut that part of me off. I exhaled slowly. What happened? Her shoulders sagged. My parents, they lost more money than they admitted. The house, she swallowed. It's gone. They had to sell it. I blinked. What? She let out a bitter laugh. Turns out, they weren't as rich as they pretended to be. They were drowning in debt. My dad had bad investments, and my mom kept spending money like it grew on trees. When things fell apart, they tried to keep up the image, but she shrugged helplessly. It's over. They're renting a small condo now. And I have nothing. I should have felt smug. I didn't. I just felt tired. She looked at me, eyes pleading. Noah, I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't have anywhere else to go. I closed my eyes for a long moment. Then, I took a step back and opened the door. Come inside. I let her crash on my couch. Not in my bed. Not in my life. Just on my couch. The first night, we didn't talk. She sat there, clutching a glass of water, staring at nothing while I finished some work emails. But as the days passed, we slipped into old patterns. I'd come home, and she'd be there. I'd cook dinner, and she'd set the table. We barely spoke, but the silence between us wasn't entirely uncomfortable. Then, one night, she finally asked the question I had been dreading. Do you think we could ever fix this? I didn't answer right away. I set my fork down, looking at her across the table. Kira, I said carefully, do you actually want to fix things, or are you just scared of being alone? Her lips parted, but she hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. That's what I thought. Tears welled in her eyes. Noah, I shook my head. You don't miss me, Kira. You miss the life I gave you. Her breath hitched. That's not true. It is, I said quietly. And deep down, you know it. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. Because for the first time, we were being honest with each other. She wiped at her eyes, looking away. So what happens now? I exhaled slowly. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely sure of my answer. I looked at her across the table, the silence stretching between us like an invisible thread. What happens now? A part of me wanted to say, you leave. You pack your things, and we go our separate ways like we should have months ago. But there was another part, a smaller, quieter voice in the back of my mind, that hesitated. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the way she had made me feel like nothing more than a paycheck, she was still Kira. The woman I had loved. The woman I had once pictured a future with. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. I don't know, I admitted. But I do know that whatever this is, it's not going back to the way it was. She swallowed hard, nodding slightly. I know. And for the first time since she had come back into my life, I believed her. Kira stayed. Not because I asked her to, but because I wasn't cruel enough to kick her out onto the street. I set ground rules. She had 2 months to figure out her next steps. I wasn't paying for her anymore. She had to find a job, contribute to rent, and start standing on her own 2 feet. And to my surprise, she actually did. She got a job at a local design firm. Nothing glamorous, just an entry-level position, but it was something. She started waking up early, going to work, coming home exhausted but proud. And little by little, the woman who had once been content to let me shoulder all the responsibility started learning what it meant to take care of herself. I won't lie and say it wasn't weird. Living together, but not together. Some nights, we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch, watching TV like old friends who had too much history between them. Other nights, we barely spoke. But there was a moment, one that caught me off guard, when I realized something had shifted. I was coming home late from work, exhausted, my shoulders aching from sitting at a desk all day. When I walked in, I smelled food. Real food. Not takeout. Not something microwaved. I turned the corner into the kitchen and saw Kira standing at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta. She glanced over her shoulder, offering a small smile. I made dinner. Thought you might be hungry. I hesitated. Because this was new. Kira had never been the type to cook. She always used to joke that her idea of making dinner was ordering something from a restaurant. But now she was standing there, making a meal for the first time in our apartment. I didn't know what to do with that. So I sat down, let her serve me a plate, and for the first time in months, we had dinner together without the weight of the past pressing down on us. And for a moment, it almost felt normal. But normal was dangerous. Because normal led to comfort. And comfort led to forgetting. And I couldn't forget what she had done. One evening, I got home late again. Only this time, I wasn't alone. A friend of mine, Lena, had dropped me off after we grabbed drinks with some coworkers. She was an old friend, someone I had met years ago, long before Kira. We stood outside my building, laughing at some dumb joke she had made, when Kira's voice cut through the air. Noah. I turned. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes flicking between me and Lena. Her expression was unreadable. Lena, completely unaware of the tension brewing, smiled and offered a friendly wave. Hey, you must be Kira? I've heard a lot about you. Kira didn't smile back. Instead, she looked at me. You're the one who's been talking about me? I sighed internally. Lena's an old friend, Kira. She knows what happened. Kira's jaw clenched slightly, but she nodded. Right. Well, you're home late. I frowned. Is that a problem? She shook her head quickly. No, of course not. Just wasn't expecting it. Lena, sensing the tension, cleared her throat. I should get going. Good seeing you, Noah. She shot me a look before leaving, one that very clearly said, what the HLL was that? When I turned back to Kira, her arms were still crossed. I let out a slow breath. Kira, I don't know what you're thinking, but is something going on between you two? She blurted out. I blinked. What? You and Lena. She bit her lip, hesitating. Are you seeing her? I laughed. I actually laughed, because the irony of this entire conversation was almost too much to handle. Are you serious? I asked, shaking my head. Kira, you lied to me for years. You used me, and now you're standing here acting jealous. Her face paled. I'm not. Yeah, you are. I cut in, my voice harder than I intended. And that's rich coming from the woman who once called me her roommate in front of an entire room of people. She flinched. And for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. She looked away, exhaling shakily. I don't have the right to feel this way, do I? I stayed silent. Because she was right. She didn't. And yet, as I walked past her and into our apartment, I couldn't ignore the way my heart was beating a little too fast. Because no matter how much I told myself I was over her, some small, stubborn part of me wasn't. For the next few weeks, things between Kira and me felt off. She was trying. I could see it. She was cooking, cleaning, even paying half the rent. She was doing all the things she had never done before, like she was trying to prove something. But it was too little, too late. I wasn't the same person who had spent 5 years bending over backward to make her happy. I wasn't the guy who ignored the red flags, who made excuses for her selfishness. And the moment I truly knew things were over for good was the night she kissed me. It was late. I had just come back from another work event, exhausted and ready to crash. Kira was still up, sitting on the couch, flipping through a home design magazine. She looked up when I walked in, a hesitant smile on her lips. Hey, she said softly. Long night. I nodded, tossing my keys onto the counter. Yeah, just a networking thing. She hesitated. Was Lena there? I sighed. Yeah, she was. Her lips pressed together like she wanted to say something else, but was holding back. Instead, she closed the magazine and stood up, walking toward me. I didn't expect what happened next. She reached up, hesitated just for a second, and then kissed me. It wasn't a deep, passionate kiss. It was soft, tentative, like she was testing the waters. But I didn't kiss her back. I didn't move. And when she pulled away, searching my face for some kind of reaction, I gave her the truth. Kira, I said quietly, this isn't going to happen. Her face fell. Noah, I can't do this, I said firmly, stepping back. I don't trust you. And trust? That's everything. Her eyes glistened. But I've changed. You see that, don't you? I exhaled slowly. You want to change because you lost everything. But what happens when you get comfortable again? When things are easy? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because she knew I was right. And so did I. This was never going to work. It never could. I just had one last thing to do before I walked away for good. The next morning, I left for work early, but I wasn't going to the office. I was meeting someone. Kira's mother. She had no idea I was coming, but I knew exactly where to find her. One of the fancy cafes she loved to flaunt on social media, the kind of place where overpriced lattes were a status symbol. When I walked in, her eyes widened in surprise. Noah, she said smoothly, setting down her cup. This is unexpected. I smiled, sliding into the seat across from her. Figured we should talk. She raised an eyebrow. About. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough to make sure she understood I wasn't playing games. About how you and your husband convinced Kira to throw away a good relationship for the illusion of status. About how you pushed her toward a lifestyle you couldn't even afford yourselves. Her face stiffened. That's a bold accusation. I smiled. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. You wanted her with someone wealthy, someone who fit the image you were desperate to maintain. And guess what? She listened. She chose you over me. She scoffed, but I wasn't done. And now, I continued. You've lost your house. Your finances are in shambles. And Kira? She's got nothing. No money. No security. No future. Her fingers tightened around her cup. She still has you. I let out a low chuckle. No, she doesn't. For the first time, a flicker of unease crossed her face. What do you mean? I leaned back. I mean, I'm done. Completely. And I figured I should tell you personally, so that when she comes crying back to you, you'll know exactly why. Her expression darkened. You wouldn't just abandon her. I tilted my head. Why not? She abandoned me when it suited her. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. So I stood up, smoothed out my shirt, and gave her one last, satisfied smile. Enjoy your coffee. Then I walked away. That night, I packed her things. She came home to find her suitcase by the door, her expression shifting from confusion to panic. Noah, she said, voice unsteady. What's this? I met her gaze, my face calm. It's time. Tears welled in her eyes. I thought we were making progress. I shook my head. No. You thought you could fix things because you needed me. But I don't need you, Kira. Not anymore. She took a shaky step forward. Please. I sighed, softer this time. You'll be okay. But this? We're not okay. And we never will be. For a long moment, she just stood there, her breathing uneven. Then, slowly, she nodded. She picked up her suitcase, glancing at me one last time. And without another word, she walked out the door. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, I was free. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Kira was still struggling. She had moved into a small apartment, working a job she didn't love, learning how to live without luxury. Her parents? They weren't doing much better. The perfect image they had clung to for so long was gone, and they had no one to blame but themselves. And me? I was thriving. I had moved on, found someone who appreciated me for me, not for what I could provide. Someone who saw me as a partner, not a paycheck. And the best part? One night, I ran into Kira at a coffee shop. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, maybe apologize, maybe beg. But before she could, Lena walked up beside me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Ready to go?" I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." And as we walked out together, I didn't look back. Not once.